Send Help is one of those films where the title tells you less than the team behind it, because this isn't just another survival thriller. It's a Sam Raimi film, made late in his career with decades of genre experience behind it, and that changes how you should approach this film. Hi, I'm Rob, and this is A Constantly Racing Mind. If you're new here, we break down sci-fi, horror, action, adventure, prop culture, and all things geek. With one guiding idea: every frame tells a story. Now, on the surface, Send Help presents itself as a survival story. Two co-workers, a corporate power imbalance, a sudden disaster, and an isolated environment where modern hierarchies no longer apply. But what makes Send Help interesting isn't the survival mechanics. It's how uncomfortable the film is willing to be. Now, this is not a feel-good resilience story. It's not a triumph of the human spirit narrative. Instead, the film lives in tension between competence and charisma, between authority and usefulness, between who someone is in a system and who they are without one. Tonally, Send Help walks a tightrope between survival thriller, dark comedy, and psychological unease. That balancing act won't be for everyone, and I feel that's intentional. This is a film that trusts its audience to have a sense of discomfort rather than resolve it quickly. Before we continue, this is your final warning. This section contains full spoilers for Send Help, including major story turns and the ending. If you haven't seen the film yet and want to go in blind, stop here. The non-spoiler review is available separately. At first glance, Send Help looks like a survival thriller about competence. A woman overlooked at the corporate world suddenly finds herself in an environment where her skills matter, while the man who once held power over her becomes dependent. That setup invites a very specific expectation. This is going to be a reversal story. But Send Help isn't interested in reversal. It's interested in escalation. And more importantly, it's interested in what happens after the power changes hands. This is not a story about survival. It's a story about what power does to unresolved resentment. The opening act is crucial because it establishes that Linda isn't just ignored. She's systematically erased. Her labor is stolen, her presence is dismissed, her identity is flattened into inconvenience. The film makes a point of showing her competence, her preparation, and her isolation. Even before the plane crashes, Linda is already stranded, emotionally and socially. Bradley, by contrast, represents inherited authority. He hasn't earned his position, but he knows how to perform power. And I think that is very important to the basis of Linda's mindset, because when the plane goes down, the film doesn't reset their dynamic. It transfers it to a new environment. Once on the island, Send Help initially plays with familiar survival beats. Linda thrives, she builds shelter, she collects water, she feeds them. Bradley flounders, and for a while, the film lets the audience enjoy that shift. But then something important happens. Linda doesn't just survive, she curates dependency. She decides when Bradley eats, what he learns, how much autonomy he is allowed. So when rescue opportunities appear, Linda chooses not to act. This is a film's quiet turning point. Because from that moment on, survival is no longer the conflict, control is. Linda begins reenacting the emotional architecture of her corporate life. But now she's the one defining the rules. The island becomes an office, Bradley becomes the subordinate, and survival becomes performance. As the film escalates, Send Help refuses to offer easy moral alignment. Linda humiliates Bradley, but she also saves him. She poisons him, but ensures he survives. She terrifies him, but frames it as teaching. The film is very careful here. It never presents Linda as the mustache-twirling villain, but it also never pretends her actions are righteous. This is where Raimi's restraint comes into play. The horror doesn't come from monsters or violence. It comes from how justified everything feels, right up until it doesn't. The arrival of Bradley's fiancée, Zuri, reframes everything. Rescue is no longer hypothetical. It's here. It's present. And Linda chooses not to intervene. Zuri's death isn't treated as sensational. It's treated as consequence. And when Bradley later discovers the truth, the film makes its boldest move. It suggests that Linda has been living comfortably for some time, not merely surviving, but choosing isolation. The revelation of the mansion reframes the entire film. This was never about endurance. It was about keeping the world out. Yes, there's a mansion. In the final confrontation, Send Help removes all ambiguity. Linda confesses. She admits she could have left. She admits she didn't want to. Bradley attempts reconciliation, not out of love, but fear. He suggests staying. He suggests permanence. He suggests turning isolation into partnership. It's the final performance of power. And Linda rejects it. Bradley's death is not triumphant. It's not cathartic. It's procedural. The violence is blunt, unceremonious, and final. The final moments of Send Help are where the film delivers its true message. Linda returns to society not as a pariah, but as a success. Her story goes viral. She profits. She writes a self-help book, and she's celebrated. The world doesn't punish her. It rewards her. And that's the most disturbing choice the film makes. Because Send Help isn't asking whether Linda was right or wrong. It's asking whether outcomes matter more than actions, and whether survival stories are only celebrated when they're convenient. This ending only works because Sam Raimi understands escalation. From Evil Dead to Drag Me to Hell, Raimi has always been fascinated by how ordinary people justify increasingly extreme behavior. Think of the Spider-Man series. Send Help strips away the supernatural, but the structure remains. The horror isn't external. It's procedural. It's human. And it doesn't end when the danger is gone. I'm not a psychiatrist and I don't play one on TV. However, Linda's behavior is not driven by revenge in the traditional sense, because I think revenge seeks balance. You hurt me, I hurt you. The score's settled. Linda never seeks closure. Instead, she demonstrates control, addiction, a compulsive psychological need to maintain a symmetry once she finally has it. She does not simply punish Bradley and move on. She withholds rescue even when escape is possible. She engineers dependencies rather than ending it. She escalates control even after apologies and submission. This tells us her motivation isn't anger, it's fear of erasure. For Linda, equality is dangerous. If Bradley becomes self-sufficient, then she is no longer needed and no longer the center and no longer visible, at least in her mind. Control becomes the mechanism through which her identity is preserved. In psychological terms, revenge ends suffering. Control postpones it indefinitely. That's why Linda doesn't stop when she wins. Stopping would mean returning to a world where her value can be ignored again. Linda doesn't want Bradley to suffer. She needs him to need her. There is a line in the film when they are on the island and Bradley is coming to terms with his loss of power. Linda tells him, "Don't mistake my kindness for weakness." When people talk about Sam Raimi, they usually split his career in two. Early campy horror, later mainstream blockbusters. But that separation misses the point. Raimi's defining trait isn't genre, it's momentum control. From The Evil Dead onward, Raimi treated the camera like a living thing. Movement equals emotion. Speed equals panic. Stillness equals dread. What's fascinating about Send Help is that Raimi chooses restraint. This is a contained film, a small cast, a limited environment, and that's where Raimi thrives. Think of the cabin in The Evil Dead. He's not interested in sensationalism here. He's interested in pressure, how people behave when systems collapse, how power shifts when social rules stop working. This feels like a late-career Raimi project in the best way, confident, deliberate, and uninterested in pleasing everyone. Raimi also serves as producer alongside Zainab Azizi. As producer, Raimi has consistently protected tone over trend. Through projects under Ghost House Pictures and beyond, he's shown a willingness to let genre films be strange, uncomfortable, or morally ambiguous. Send Help reportedly began as a more straightforward psychological thriller. Under Raimi's influence, it leans harder into dark irony and character discomfort rather than clean genre beats. This isn't a film engineered by a committee, it's a film shaped by intent. The screenplay comes from Shannon and Mark Swift, writers with deep genre credentials. They worked extensively in horror frameworks where rules matter, escalation matters, and character flaws drive conflict. I think that experience shows here. Now, without spoiling everything, Send Help depends on clear power dynamics. That is obvious in the trailers. Escalating tension, and characters whose weaknesses are exposed by circumstance. The script provides a solid foundation, one that can withstand Raimi's tonal experimentation without collapsing. Cinematographer Bill Pope is a longtime Raimi collaborator and a genre legend in his own right. From Darkman to The Matrix to Spider-Man 2, Pope excels at making motion readable and purposeful. In Send Help, the camera emphasizes proximity over scale, faces over landscape, and tension over beauty. Even opening spaces feel constricting. This isn't a survival photography meant to inspire awe. It's designed to corner the audience, mirroring the character's psychological states. Raimi's films live or die in the edit, and Bob Murawski has shaped that rhythm for decades. Murawski understands that Raimi's tone isn't smooth, it's punctuated. Silence matters, timing matters, and restraint matters. Send Help doesn't rush its discomfort, and that patience comes from the edit as much as the direction. Then there's Denny Elfman's involvement, which signals tonal intention immediately. From his early days as the frontman of Oingo Boingo to decades of film scoring, including long collaborations with Tim Burton and Raimi himself, Elfman understands mood better than melody. Here, the score doesn't guide emotion so much as destabilize it. Elfman knows when not to play, and in a film like this, that restraint is doing some very heavy lifting. At a reported mid-budget studio scale, Send Help lives or dies on craft. There's no excess to hide behind, no sensationalism to distract from character. Every creative choice matters, and I think this team knows exactly what kind of film they're making. Rachel McAdams brings a fascinating history to this role. She's known for emotional accessibility, Spotlight, The Notebook, About Time, and she's also played characters navigating power, visibility, and emotional labor. McAdams has a natural ability to project intelligence without grandstanding. She excels at internalizing performances where small reactions matter more than dialogue. In a film like Send Help, that quality is essential. This role asks for restraint, credibility, and the ability to carry long stretches without external validation, and McAdams is uniquely equipped for that. Dylan O'Brien has spent much of his career balancing charm and volatility, from the Maze Runner series to darker turns in projects like American Assassin. O'Brien understands how to play characters whose confidence masks insecurity. That skill set is critical here, and I feel O'Brien brings believable charisma, emotional unpredictability, and an edge that keeps scenes from settling comfortably. His presence ensures the film never becomes one-note power fantasy. Now, what makes McAdams and O'Brien effective together isn't chemistry in the romantic sense. It's contrast. Their energy levels, rhythms, and screen presence create friction. And friction is exactly what a film like this needs. There are many scenes of note in Send Help. Besides the horrible way that Bradley and his cohorts of entitled brats act toward Linda, I want to remind everyone that this is a Sam Raimi film. The intense facial close-ups, focusing on bits of food on Linda's face, Bradley's disgust of Linda, Bradley's extreme close-up of his eyes as Linda talks about castrating him, as he sits paralyzed by some octopus neurotoxin. There is an instant karma scene where Donovan found Linda's survivor audition tape, and they're laughing at her on the plane while she's trying to save their corporate asses. She's not the meek, mousy woman who dresses frumpy. She just assumes that role in the company because she believed in Bradley's father when he promised her a VP promotion before he passed. Like many Sam Raimi films, there is humor, when the horror strikes. When the plane is damaged and starts decompressing, you chuckle, quite loudly, as her co-workers try to take Linda's seat as Donovan and his other execs are being pulled violently out the side of the plane. The crash scene was impressive. There's enough gore and gross out parts to get that visceral jolt out of you. Linda's battle with a large angry boar, where the blood and damage to the animal reminds you of The Evil Dead and makes you cringe. And for some reason, Raimi is obsessed with his characters vomiting into another's mouth. Think Drag Me to Hell. You get humor, blood, gore, and a good ghostly jump scare. The mansion revealed near the end is where some other films with similar themes come to mind. There are some great visual scenes that I really liked. The plane crash for one, Linda hunting in the jungle, and some of the shenanigans that both Linda and Dylan pull on each other, which means that I should warn you that there is blood, there is gore, and there is humor. I really like this film, and I feel Send Help is a solid 4. I did feel that I could see that Send Help belongs to a specific lineage of survival stories, the kind where isolation doesn't ease power, it reshapes it. Films like Triangle of Sadness, Misery, or The Lighthouse aren't really about escape. They're about what happens when authority loses its usual supports and has to reinvent itself. What makes Send Help interesting is that it strips that idea down to two people and asks a different, more uncomfortable question. When the system collapses, do we become better or just more honest about who we are? If you got something from this review, drop a like and please subscribe. Also, leave a comment about what you thought about Sam Raimi's film. Remember, every frame tells a story. I'm Rob, and this is The Constantly Racing Mind. Thank you for watching.